Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where we give you more news in less time. I'm Whitney Ward. Mark has the night off. Let's get started now as we take a look at the weather. Certainly has been cold this week, but the big question now is how much colder is it going to get? Our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legous, standing by with the answers. Jeremy, what do we need to know about this week's forecast?
For me, I'll tell you everything I know, and unfortunately, it's not much. Let's go through it. All right, right now we do have some patchy freezing fog. Up on top of the South Hill, it's dense. We're actually seeing it lift a little bit in some parts of town, but look at that, 26 degrees here in town. That is likely going to be about as cold as we get. We might lose a few more degrees, but with a thick stratus cloud over the top of us, nobody has really changed in the past couple of hours. In fact, Deer Park has only gotten warmer. Visibility is reduced depending on where you are. 8 miles of visibility in Spokane. Out in Airway Heights, down to about 1/10 of a mile. Deer Park, about 1/2 a mile. Down in the Palouse, about 1/4 of a mile. Out in Moses Lake, about 1/2 a mile. So yes, fog is going to be a factor once again. And tomorrow morning, we're waking up to near zero visibility in many locations. That means our temperatures aren't going to change much from where they are right now. So I'm keeping us around 21 degrees for our low, which means by tomorrow afternoon, we might burn off some of that fog, and I think we could be back in the upper 20s. So you're probably going, when does this cold arrive? Well, coming up, I'm going to tell you why I think we might dodge the cold for now.
All right, Jeremy, thank you. No new update today in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. It's now been 3 weeks since authorities have held a press conference allowing us to ask questions. Families continue to be frustrated by the lack of information. And as KREM 2's Kyle Simchuk reports tonight, one of them has now hired an attorney.
We've learned the family of Kaylee Consalves met with investigators and the Latah County prosecutor on Monday, and with them, attorney Shannon Gray, who told me the family is asking for more accountability and communication from authorities. Gray says Kaylee's family supports law enforcement and is grateful for the amount of resources on the case, but he says they've done a poor job of keeping families in the loop. Obviously, there is sensitive information that police are not giving out, but Gray says when it comes to the small updates they're sharing, Kaylee's family is hearing about it on Facebook and news reports. During our interview tonight, Gray said another point of frustration is the fact that investigators haven't really interviewed Kaylee's family throughout the course of the investigation.
You know, they just recently, I think, interviewed some of the families, but the Gonzalez family has never. They've given them a questionnaire to fill out about some information, but they haven't sat down with them and asked them questions about, I think, a lot of questions that they should have been asking a long time ago. The family is probably the most important piece of information you can get about the habits of the individuals that were involved.
Gray says Kaylee's family is also upset with the rumors and conspiracies being spread online. During the start of the investigation, we heard some conflicting statements from officials that had to be walked back. Moscow police are still asking people to remain vigilant and to report any tips or suspicious activity. In the studio, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
Today, a jury found Pierce County Sheriff Ed Troyer not guilty after 12 days of testimony and 1 day of deliberations. Sheriff Troyer was accused of lying to dispatchers, saying a black newspaper carrier had threatened to kill him. The state argued the evidence and witness testimony clearly showed he lied and abused the power of his position to cover up that lie. Troyer's attorney claims that it made no sense for him to lie, highlighting his reputation at the sheriff's department to showcase his character. Tonight, the verdict ends almost 2 years of speculation, but the reactions are mixed.
I've been here all my life, and it's been going on, and everybody keeps covering it up and keeps covering it up, and it's going to do it again. It's going to happen again, and it's not fair to us here in Tacoma, Washington, that he's still here. He needs to be gone.
And I think this was a political hit job by the AG and the governor. What the evidence the jury came out to be was a fabulous verdict for Ed Troyer.
During Troyer's testimony, he expressed disdain for the way he has been treated. He said that's why he never gave a media interview. A man accused of killing a woman in a North Spokane road rage incident started trial this week. That woman's boyfriend testified in court today. Richard Huff was arrested last May on second-degree murder charges. He says he shot the victim in self-defense, claiming she was armed with a knife and threatening to cut him. Police never did find a knife at the scene, but they later learned that Anthony Olson, the victim's boyfriend, took a putty knife she had before he left the scene. In his testimony today, Olson described what he saw after she got out of the car to confront Huff.
They were arguing, and I heard a pop, and I told somebody I was screaming, "Call 911, somebody, call 911." And I freaked, and I had warrants, and I left.
He also told the jury he did in fact slam on his brakes while driving in front of Huff's car. He said he did it on purpose to make them mad. It has been talked about now for more than a decade, but Spokane County could be one step closer to getting a new jail. County commissioners will put the idea before voters this November. And coming up here in about 10 minutes, KREM 2's Kyle Simchuk breaks down where that funding would actually come from. Today, though, does mark 10 years since the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. A gunman entered the school and took the lives of 20 children and 6 adults. Since then, the victims' parents have started Sandy Hook Promise. It's a nonprofit that works to prevent suicides and mass shootings. Now, more than 23,000 schools across the country use that program, which they say has helped stop at least 11 planned school shootings. Tonight, we now know American soccer journalist Grant Wahl died of an aortic aneurysm while covering the World Cup. The 49-year-old became ill and was rushed to a nearby hospital in Qatar, where he was pronounced dead. Wahl's brother had been vocal about his suspicions surrounding his death after Wahl had received threats for refusing to remove a T-shirt in support of LGBTQ rights. Wahl's brother, though, has since retracted his suspicions. Subaru is recalling more than 270,000 SUVs because they pose a fire risk. The company says they are the Ascent SUVs model years 2019 and between 2019 and 2022. Subaru says 2 fires have been reported but didn't lead to any injuries or crashes. Owners are urged, though, to park those cars outside until a wiring fix is completed. All right, now to Night Beat. We've got a quick look at the day's top stories and a developing story from this afternoon. We have learned about the death of a Fairchild-based airman. Airman First Class Sammy Cheffa was found dead in Stevens County yesterday. The cause of that death is still officially under investigation. Of course, this is a developing story. We will bring you updates as soon as we have them. Avista is working with Spokane police to find the person responsible for an outage in downtown Spokane overnight. The company says someone who was not an Avista employee gained access to the Post Street substation. The outage only lasted about 3 hours. The power has since been restored to everyone who was affected, but Avista says they will continue to work with police to fully investigate. Second Harvest has suspended food deliveries to more than 80 of its food bank partners across the region. The organization is citing food shortages, but realizes how significant this will be for families.
We understand. We're really frustrated too. I've had some calls from some really frustrated people, and I tell them, you're right. We're frustrated. We wish that things were a lot different.
Second Harvest is continuing its mobile food banks. Those are the trucks that are outfitted to deliver food to people in the more rural communities. The suspension will likely last at least through the end of January. KREM 2 has obtained documents today confirming a ChickfilA will not be coming to Spokane's South Hill, at least not at 29th and Regal. City leaders say that proposal did not meet the city's criteria for a quick-serve restaurant. Specifically, the lot lacked space for sufficient parking. The business also missed the deadline to appeal that decision. In the meantime, the South Hill Grill, which currently occupies that space, is now moving to a new location. They will reopen in January near 57th and Regal. That was your Night Beat. If you'd like to learn more about any of those stories, just text the word NIGHT to 509-448-2000 and we'll send them right to your phone. Tonight, we are getting a closer look at Governor Jay Inslee's proposed 2023-25 state budget. It includes funding for climate change, public safety, and housing. One big budget item is that voters would need to approve $4 billion for affordable housing.
Fundamentally, it has occurred because we have not built the housing, the roofs that people need to live under.
The population in Washington is also growing, and the governor says Washington needs to add 1 million more units to accommodate that growing population by the year 2044. That was KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where you get more news in less time, but we're not done yet. Don't go to bed. Spokane County could be getting one step closer to a new jail. When you could get a chance to vote on that idea? Well, that's when we come back in just 90 seconds.